So here it also has an entry for Genesis 1 and 27. It says man, male and female. So bara is the act of creating male and female, which means Elohim, a plural of majesty, an honorific plural, is the only entity that does bara, and is the only entity that baras mankind. Because when you get to Genesis 1 and 27, that bara is done by the Elohim alone. No other entity can claim the right to have created mankind. This is a polemic against the Babylonian myths of the day. Because if we're using the Enuma Elish as the referent that this is refuting or rebutting, in that myth, the creation of man and the creation of the universe was not just by one entity, but in this text, it is. Okay. So we have the sense of create, but what do you mean? Give me some more information. All right. We're going to the Concise Dictionary of Classical Hebrew and the cow stem. It says create heavens and earth, day and night, animals and human beings. So that word bara is used specifically of the creation of heavens and the earth, day and night, animals and human beings. You only see bara in Genesis chapter 1 about those four items, right? In groupings, heavens and earth, day and night, animals and human beings. And only the deity is responsible for doing this. Only the deity is responsible for day and night, which means he controls time. There's no other separate entity that controls time. Meaning the heavens and earth in its material form and the things therein, it is responsible for the creation of all of that. Of animals specifically, the word bara is used in regards to dealing with the animals and human beings. Genesis 1:21 deals with the animals. Genesis 1:27 deals with the human beings. Day and night it creates, and heavens and earth it creates. But what's interesting is bara has another entry that you can see right there, entry 2, which means to fatten oneself with sacrificial meat. That's the infinitive. When it is used in the infinitive, it means to fatten something. When it's in a Nephil imperfect in the second entry, perhaps means to be made fat or healthy of works. Again, I'm only giving you this as a reference, right? We're not going to go too deep into this, but this is a good point of reference because not only does it mean to create, whatever that may mean, but what does create mean? Well, we're going to see why the ancient Near East is necessary, and sister language is necessary to find cognates that help with the glosses when it comes to Hebrew language. What's a gloss? A gloss is a word that we typically cannot truly define because we don't have enough information. So we just give it. We pass off a word, a regular translated word, to define it when it may not give the full essence of what the word means, right? But here we see something very interesting. We see it just means to create, whatever that means, right? It's not really going into detail. But we get more detail when we look at entry 2. It says to fatten, to made fat or made healthy. You remember when the creator says, and it was good? Not the creator, excuse me. The narrator says of the creator, and it was good. Well, he made something functional. He made something healthy. He made it functional. He made it healthy by fattening it. So what you'll see, I don't really want to give this out right quick, but I'll give it out. But what you'll see in the Bible, whenever you see it speak about somebody being ill, they are frail. They become frail. When they become frail, that is an indicator of somebody that is dysfunctional, unhealthy. So typically, one of the things they do is try to feed the individual, to fatten or fill them up. So that way they are tov, good, or healthy. So when we look at bara, we had a situation where a state of substance is void, is without life. There's nothing there. It is empty. So therefore, its current state is dysfunctional. It has no function, so it must be fattened, made healthy. It must be good. Tov means functional. You're giving it function. Okay. All right. And we have bari and bari. We get here the yod bari with that aleph can be the glottal stop or an open. But barit there, when we look at another similar entry, it means fat, fleshy, nourished, healthy, of person, cattle, ear, or of grain, be fat. From bara. When we get into our low intertextual analysis, we'll go into the rest of the book of Genesis, and we'll be able to see things like Genesis 41 and 2, Genesis 41 and 5. And you'll see when you understand this from a concrete perspective, you know what is happening, what the deity is performing, what it's doing. Create is too abstract. Okay. And the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon is going to give us more information. And the one thing I like about the BDB is that it looks at cognates in other sister Semitic languages. Bara, it says, means to shape. Okay. So now we have more of a concrete understanding, not just the abstract create, which would make you assume ex nihilo, which means out of nothing. That's not what the text teaches. When we read Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 to 3, there is something there. So it's not out of nothing, but it all depends on how you interpret Genesis 1. Is Genesis 1 an absolute state, a construct state? If it's a construct state, it's in the temporal sense. That means it depends on another verse in order to complete the thought. In the case of the consensus, verse 3 completes the thought of verse 1, whereas verse 2 is the parenthetical, giving you insight into the state before verse 1 and verse 3. So if something is there and he's bara in it, that means he's shaping it. But it says here in the Arabic form, it means to form, fashioned by cutting, shaping out, pairing a reed for writing, a stick for an arrow, which means something has to pre-exist before bara can be performed. This is how we put dogma to bed, by understanding these terms within its Semitic concrete state. In order for me to pair a reed, break a reed off and fashion it and shape it so that I can dip it in ink and start writing something, or if I'm creating an arrow, I get a stick and I have to pair out the arrow from that stick, which means the substance already has to be, the material in some form has to be there. But the material is void, it's empty. It doesn't have a shape. It doesn't have a purpose or a function until I add one to it. But then if we go into the Phoenician, it's an incisor, a trade involving cutting. The Assyrian is baru, to make, to create, to found, build. Again, physically something. And I can't build nothing without the material. When we go down here in the cow stem, and again, we're going to stay in the cow stem, right? Because the cow is the root stem. That's the one that we're dealing with. It says shape, fashion, create, always of divine activity. So that verb is used in other cultures for things that people do, but now that verb is then elevated and applied as an attribute of the divine entity in the Hebrew Bible. Meaning that he is now performing this on pre-existing material. Now, the theological implication of that.
The Bible is arguably the most enigmatic book of all time. Its depth and richness of narrative, songs, poetry, law, prophecy, and eschatology is unrivaled in its class. This text confounded many for centuries. Attributed to the divine inspiration of the Most High Yah, only a select few were privileged to be able to unravel the mysteries that lie beneath. Today, There are tons of academic gatekeepers who have been able to unlock this coded script using a variety of techniques mostly unknown to laymen. However, today this is no longer the case. Thankfully, Divine Prospect has spent 15 years playing the spook who sat by the door to gather intel on how to best approach the text and get the most objective understanding possible. He is making these techniques available to the general public in the upcoming KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible study classes. For the first time, be able to read the text the way it was intended by the author to his immediate audience. Once you've been able to successfully decipher the scripture, you will then learn how to map it to modern times and yield a harvest of actual results. Sign up today by going to www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect and join the $50 tier to reserve your spot. Seats are extremely limited, so take advantage of this opportunity before it's too late. Peace and shalom.